Brace yourselves, for the universe just got a whole lot creepier. Scientists peering into the depths of space have stumbled upon something so unsettling, so profoundly disturbing, it's sending shockwaves through the scientific community. We're not talking about a new planet or a distant galaxy. This is something far more sinister, something that challenges our understanding of the cosmos and leaves us questioning our place in it. Prepare to journey to the edge of the known universe, where the darkness holds secrets that may forever change our perception of reality.
Let them get a view from there and see what the field of view looks like. They're backing into the cable. Okay.
We're back to talk about deep space.
We decided to stop taking some space from you and start taking a look at space in general. Starting us off today, we have a never-before-seen deep space radio signal detected in 2023. The radio signal comes in the form of an FRB, a fast radio burst, which is a bright flash of radio light that lasts for only a few milliseconds before disappearing altogether. The fascinating thing about this particular radio burst is that, 1, it comes from far beyond our own galaxy, and 2, it is highly active and frequently repeats itself, meaning its behavior is incredibly different from any other FRB observed to date. Sophia Scheich, lead author of the discovery, was quoted saying, "This work is exciting because it provides both confirmation of known FRB properties and the discovery of some new ones." The FRB was observed 35 times by Scheich and other scientists over a 2-month period, with each burst coming from the exact same unknown source. And an unusual pattern emerged in the bursts when observed for an extended period of time. Usually, reoccurring FRBs get lower in pitch as they go. This one, however, is different. The pitch goes up and down with each burst. Scientists believe the bursts are coming from a neutron star called magnetar, the core of a dead star with an incredibly strong magnetic field. And they're probably right, but on the other hand, perhaps it's a signal coming from beyond our cosmic simulation, proving that none of this is really real.
Next up, we have a very recently detected radio signal that has NASA scientists pretty confused. It's a repeating radio signal from deep space that cycles every 53.8 minutes. It's been dubbed ASKAP J1935 plus 2148. It's coming from a neutron star about 15,820 light years away. Neutron stars are incredibly dense remnants of massive stars that have collapsed in on themselves. According to Dr. Manisha Caleb, an astrophysicist involved in the study, what's strange about this discovery is the slow pace of the signal. Most radio signals from neutron stars are a lot more rapid. Astronomers used the Australian Square Kilometre Array Pathfinder, or the ASKAP radio telescope, to detect and study the signal. They found that it has 3 distinct emission states, each with its own set of characteristics. So, what is causing the strange behavior of the signal? Too soon to know.
Next up, we have the space roar. Subtle, right? Now, as a general rule, there is no sound in space, but of course, when science, engineering, and mechanics all intertwine, we are still able to pick up sounds when using the right tools, which is exactly what happened in 2006 when scientists used a listening instrument tied to a balloon 23 miles high to pick up a signal that was 6 times louder than anything they could have ever expected. Like, honestly, they were shocked and confused, but overall incredibly excited. Before the transmission came through, scientists had expected to observe the sounds of an early star, but after hearing the transmission, an early star being the origin of the sound was pretty much entirely ruled out. Now the theory is that the combined radio emission from distant galaxies created the sound, but of course that's just a theory. In reality, scientists really have no idea. But not knowing the sound's origin is not the only problem the signal has raised. There is also the fear that the volume of the signal will interfere with efforts made to search for signals coming from the first stars that formed from the Big Bang. Of course, the obvious theory jumps out. Could the space roar be an attempt at keeping us from revealing the truth about the universe? Discovering that it's all just one big cosmic simulation, you know? Or is it yelling at us, begging us to look into it more, so we can discover that this is all just one big cosmic simulation?
The James Webb Telescope may just be able to spot intelligent life out in space, and not in the way you may be thinking. It has to do with greenhouse gases. So a recent study from the University of California, Riverside, suggests that we might detect alien civilizations by spotting the artificial greenhouse gases on their terraformed planet. Terraforming involves modifying a planet to make it habitable, and certain gases like fluorinated methane, ethane, and propane would be telltale signs that this was going on. These gases don't occur naturally in large amounts, but could be used by sentient life to warm up their planets. Edward Schweiderman, an astrobiologist leading the study, says, quote, "These gases would be good for a civilization that perhaps wanted to forestall an impending ice age or terraform an otherwise uninhabitable planet in their system, as humans have proposed for Mars." So the James Webb can detect the infrared signatures produced by these gases, which can survive in atmospheres for up to 50,000 years. So no, nothing's been spotted yet, but it is something they're keeping their eyes open for.
Next up, we've got the Southern Ring Nebula, which NASA has tricked the public into believing is the performance of a dying star, when in reality, it's clearly a rendering flaw in the simulation, giving us a glimpse into the world of our creators, or so they say. But if you want to believe NASA, here's what they have to say. The phenomena is caused by the dimmer dying star sitting in the center of the image, sending out rings of gas and dust in all directions, which it has been doing for the past couple thousand years, while the brighter star next to it illuminates the appearance of the nebula, making it incredibly beautiful and almost inviting, like you want to go through it. The event, which was observed almost head-on by the James Hubble telescope, has made scientists incredibly excited because the clarity of the image is a gateway to the secrets of the nature of dying stars. But I personally think it's a gateway into the real reality, and this image is really just the Matrix begging us to escape, but okay, NASA, alright.
James Webb Telescope recently spotted a series of star clusters that may very well completely change the way we think about the history of the universe. These star clusters could be the oldest in the universe. The star clusters were found in the cosmic gems arc, which formed just 460 million years after the Big Bang. This arc, originally detected by the Hubble Space Telescope, gives us a crucial glimpse into the early stages of galaxy and star formation. The cosmic gems arc is approximately 13.3 billion light years away, but with the Webb telescope, scientists were able to pinpoint 5 massive and dense star clusters within the arc. These clusters are believed to have formed during a period of intense activity in young galaxies, contributing to the ultraviolet light emissions of their host galaxy. Unlike ancient star clusters in our Milky Way, which have survived for billions of years, these young star clusters are giving scientists insights into the early stages of star formation, which is pretty interesting.
Alright, next up we have the Carina Nebula, basically the opposite of the aforementioned Southern Ring Nebula, which shows the death of a star. The Carina Nebula is a landscape of star birth, or at least that's what NASA wants you to think. Personally, I think it looks like the early stages of landscape rendering. I mean, we've been asking for life on other planets for some time now. Maybe whoever's controlling this cosmic simulation has finally started to listen. But of course, if that line of thinking doesn't quite sit right in your simulated brain designed to reject the idea that free will doesn't actually exist, let me tell you what NASA has to say. Apparently, according to the space agency, the Carina Nebula is not proof of simulation theory, but instead it's an emerging star nursery, and the image captured by the James Webb Space Telescope shows individual stars in the Carina Nebula that were previously obscured due to cosmic dust particles. Sure.
Next up we have unexplained light fluctuations coming from a star in the Cygnus constellation. Scientists still don't know what's causing it, but one theory is that there's an alien megastructure surrounding it. And that's not just an internet theory, that is something a number of scientists have proposed. It's often referred to as the Tabby star Dyson sphere theory. So the strange dimming was first spotted by citizen scientists throughout the Planet Hunters project, using data from the Kepler Space Telescope. Tabby star showed extreme dimming, sometimes up to 22% in brightness. Now, there are tons of ideas about why this could be happening, but the alien megastructure is, I'm sure, most of what we want to hear. This hypothetical megastructure, known as the Dyson swarm or sphere, could have been built by an advanced extraterrestrial civilization to harness the star's energy. We really don't have any solid evidence of this at this point. It's just that possibility because of the constant dimming intermittently, but there are loads of possibilities.
Next up, we have Quazar 3C273, a supermassive black hole feeding on humongous quantities of gas located in the center of the giant elliptical galaxy in the constellation of Virgo. It is also the first quasar ever identified and the optically brightest quasar discovered to date. Quazar 3C273 is incredibly powerful, capable of emitting hundreds and possibly thousands of times more energy than the entire energy output of our own galaxy, the Milky Way, which means it probably has enough energy to power the simulation of our Milky Way and the illusion of a surrounding universe. I'm just saying, when we are looking at Quazar 3C273, we could actually be looking at the computer that made us.
Finally, we have Bernardinelli-Bernstein, which is a really big comet that's been detected. Really, really big. In fact, it's called a megacomet. Stuff like this makes me kind of wish we were living in a simulation. Speaking of simulations, is it Bernardinelli-Bernstein or Bernstein? I don't know if anyone's gonna get that joke. But anyway, the thing is headed in our direction and will make its closest approach in 2031. Luckily, it'll pass us by about 1 billion miles, which is good because it's 100,000 times more massive than your average comet, measuring 85 miles across. Just a reminder how it's not really as empty up there as it looks most of the time.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Interstellar Medium. If you're into space news, you'll know that the Voyager 1 and the Voyager 2 are two spacecrafts that have breached the edge of our solar system and have traveled further than any other man-made object before. This is important because it's given us insights we've never even had access to before, and that is exactly where this deep space discovery comes from. For a long time, we weren't exactly sure what was outside of our solar system, but we assumed it must be a dark, cold place outside of the embrace of our sun, but we now know that that is far from true. Beyond the boundaries of our solar system, there is a region that is full of invisible but chaotic activity. Experts have described it like the plunge pool under Niagara Falls, but instead of tumbling water, this region is chaotic because of solar wind. This area of space is said to be millions of kilometers thick, and it covers billions of square kilometers around the surface of our heliosphere. Michelle Bannister, who is an astronomer at the University of Canterbury in Christchurch, New Zealand, explained this area and the solar winds as a constant, powerful stream of charged particles or plasma spraying out in every direction from the sun as it crashes into a cocktail of gas, dust, and cosmic rays that blows between star systems, known as interstellar medium. Because of our comfy place in the solar system and the heliosphere that surrounds us, we are protected from this space storm happening just outside of our bubble. In our number 9 spot today, we have a whirlpool galaxy planet. Just a few months ago, it was announced that astronomers may have found a planet in a star system outside of the Milky Way, and if this is the case, it would be the first ever found in another galaxy. This planet was discovered in a spiral galaxy that is called Messier 51, but its nickname is the Whirlpool Galaxy. I like the Milky Way a lot, but that nickname has me super intrigued. But this galaxy is located a cool 23 million light years away from Earth, so I think just hearing about it will probably have to do. The first planets that lie outside of our solar system, also called exoplanets, were found in the 1990s, and while we found thousands more, this is the first time we found a planet in another galaxy, and it will be the furthest alien planet ever identified, like by thousands of times. This planet was found in what is called an X-ray binary system, which is a type of star system. As their name implies, these star systems produce and emit X-rays, and they usually are made up of a normal star and a collapsed star, like a black hole or what is known as a neutron star. So usually when astronomers are trying to find a new planet, they use what is called the transit method. Transit is when a planet orbits in front of its parent star, and for us, it causes an observable change in the light of the star. So the experts who found this new planet used this same method, but instead of optical light, they used X-ray light. In our number 8 spot today, we have radio bursts. We get a lot of radio signals from space. Some are more exciting and mysterious than others, and it's not uncommon for some of the most mysterious ones to repeat, but for the very first time just last year, researchers noticed a pattern in a series of bursts that are coming from one single source. Oh, and it just so happens that this source is 500 million light years from Earth. Fast radio bursts are super short, like millisecond long bursts of radio waves in space, and usually when they repeat it tends to be sort of sporadic or all in a cluster. That is exactly why this discovery that was made by researchers at the Canadian Hydrogen Intensity Mapping Experiment and Fast Radio Burst Project collaboration was so strange and exciting. For a period between September 16th, 2018 and October 30th, 2019, they observed these radio bursts and noticed a pattern that repeated every 6.35 days. For 4 days, the signal would release a burst or two each hour, and then it would go silent for 12 days before repeating the process. Now the focus has turned to trying to find out what is on the other end of these signals and where they are coming from. What do you think? In our number 7 spot today we have a white dwarf. Okay, so for this discovery we all have to be on the same page with white dwarfs. These things are a stellar core remnant that are made up of mostly electron degenerate matter. These things are dense. They have a mass close to that of the sun, but their volume is similar to that of Earth. Basically, white dwarfs are in the final stage of a star, or the final evolutionary stage of a star whose mass is not quite high enough to become a neutron star or a black hole. This is what will one day happen to our sweet sun as well, since it's really not that large of a star. So, now that we all get what a white dwarf is, we have discovered one, and it is known to be the fastest spinning white dwarf we have ever found. This star was located in the binary system LAMOST J02401952, yeah, that was its short name, and the star completes a full rotation every 24.93 seconds. While it's taking us 24 hours, this thing is taking 24 seconds. That sounds like the worst ride at the fair. Scream if you want to go faster. In our number 6 spot today we have more radio bursts. Remember when I said that radio bursts happen often in space? Yeah, well here we are talking about another one. I swear I wasn't lying. Researchers like Dr. Benjamin Pope at the University of Queensland, along with colleagues from the Dutch National Observatory Astron, have been using the world's most powerful telescope to search for new planets. This has led to the detection of stars that are unexpectedly blasting out radio waves, which has now led researchers to believe that this may be due to the existence of hidden planets. We know that planets in our own solar system emit powerful radio waves, which is what happens when their magnetic fields interact with solar winds, but we had yet to pick up radio signals from planets outside of our solar system, which is what makes this discovery so exciting. Dr. Joseph Callingham at Leiden University and Astron, who is also the lead author of this discovery, said that the team is confident these signals are coming from the magnetic connection of the stars and unseen orbiting planets, similar to the interaction between Jupiter and its moon Io. In our number 5 spot today we have a black hole. You would think with how terrifying black holes are we'd know a lot about them, or that they'd at least be easy to identify, but it turns out that neither of those things are true. That is certainly a frightening thought, but that is also what made this little discovery an exciting one. Just a few weeks ago, astronomers discovered a small black hole just outside of the Milky Way, and it is hiding in a little star cluster. This discovery was made by looking at how this black hole was influencing the motion of the star that is closest to it, and that made it the first time this sort of method was used to detect a black hole outside of our galaxy. This is a very valuable discovery because it means that this method could potentially be used to help discover black holes that exist in other galaxies, which could then help shed light onto how these mysterious things form and evolve. In our number 4 spot today we have Martian meteorites. Okay, so this is a discovery that comes from our solar system, and it does involve Earth and Mars. It might not be the farthest out space discovery, but for reference, the closest that Earth and Mars could possibly be, which has never happened, it's just theoretical, is 54.6 million kilometers away from each other. But in that same breath, the furthest they can be from each other is 401 million kilometers. So it's safe to say we certainly aren't close. Over the past 20 million years or so, there's been about 166 Martian rocks that have landed on Earth, but for all of this time, their exact origins were unknown. That was until recently when researchers were able to determine the most likely origin of these meteorites using a machine learning algorithm that analyzes high-resolution planetary images. This research showed that these meteorites that landed on Earth likely originated from the Tooting crater on Mars, which is located in the Tharsis region, the largest volcanic province in the entire solar system. system. This discovery is groundbreaking because it comes 10 years before the Perseverance rover is set to send back samples of the Martian soil. There is a lot that went into exactly how they made this discovery, and it includes going back in the history of the planet, which is absolutely fascinating. Unfortunately, I only have so much time here, so I can't fully explain it, but Science Daily has a fantastic article about it should you want to read up a little bit more on this incredible research project. In our number 3 spot today, we have a baby planet. To us, our Earth may seem kind of old. I mean, it's been around for millions and millions of years and long before us, but in terms of space and the universe, it's really not too old of a planet. Earlier this year, however, scientists discovered one of the youngest planets to ever be found, and it is around a distant infant star. I don't know why, but talking about finding the youngest planet sounds like the cutest thing in the world to me. Thousands of planets have been discovered around other stars, but this one's age is what makes it so unique, and the fact that it can be directly observed. So far, we believe that this planet is a few times larger than Jupiter, and it is believed that it formed with its star several million years ago. I mean, our Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, so comparably, this guy's just a little youngster. Like, this planet was forming around the same time that the main Hawaiian Islands were first emerging from the ocean. Because this planet is so young, it is still very hot from the energy that was released during its formation. Like, it's sitting at about the temperature of lava erupting from a volcano, so it's just a little too hot for comfort. In our number 2 spot today, we have Galactic recoil. There is another galaxy out there that we call the Andromeda Galaxy, and within it we have found this strangely shaped cluster of stars that has been stumping researchers for quite a while, but we think we may have found an answer as to why. This mystery has been around for decades, and this new research might help researchers to better understand how galaxies grow by feeding on each other. Basically, every galaxy has a supermassive black hole at their core. I know, it's kind of terrifying, but it's just the way it is, and there really isn't anything we can do about it. So this new study is showing that when two galaxies collide, which yes, also unfortunately happens, the supermassive black holes and their cores then release a huge, devastating, powerful kickback, like the recoil from a shotgun kind of a situation. This new study and research is now showing and suggesting that this kickback may be so strong that it can knock millions of stars into different wonky, strange orbits, and this might be the answer as to why the star cluster behaves so strangely. Basically, the collision and the waves won't affect the stars in the galaxy directly, but the recoil is going to throw the remaining supermassive black hole through space. And when I say throw, I'm talking about traveling at millions of miles per hour. We also have to remember that supermassive black holes have a mass that can be millions and even billions times that of the sun. This means that this kickback could be powerful enough for them to entirely escape the galaxy, and if they don't, they may pull the orbits of the stars around them, thus creating this wonky situation we've been wondering about. Of course, this is the most basic way of explaining it because an expert I am not, but it is truly such a fascinating concept. In our number 1 spot today, we have dead galaxies. It is said that the universe is about 13.8 billion years old. When it was just a youngster at only 3 billion years old, it was going through an extremely important period in its development, and this was the most prolific period of star birth in its entire history. New research from NASA using the Hubble Space Telescope, along with the Atacam Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array in northern Chile, they gazed towards the cosmic objects in this period, and that is when they found something they hadn't seen before. 6 different, quote, dead galaxies. By this, I mean that they had run out of the cold hydrogen needed to make stars, and without the fuel for stars, these galaxies were basically just running on empty. At this point in our universe, all the galaxies should have been forming tons of stars. I mean, ours certainly was, as can be seen by a glance towards the night sky, especially in areas that aren't clouded by light pollution. This discovery is absolutely fascinating, but it's led us to new questions we didn't even know we had before. What led these galaxies to this point? What happened to all of the cold gas in them so early on? These 6 galaxies lived fast, hot lives, but we aren't sure what went wrong. Lead author and assistant professor of astronomy at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, Kate Whitaker, proposed several potential explanations and gave us insight into the future of the studies when she said, quote, "Did a supermassive black hole in the galaxy's center turn on and heat up all the gas? If so, the gas could still be there, but now it's hot. Or it could have been expelled and now it's being prevented from accreting back into the galaxy. Or did the galaxy just use it all up and the supply is cut off? These are some of the open questions that we'll continue to explore with new observations down the road.
In at number 10, we have Felix Baumgartner and Alex Eustace. In 2012, Felix Baumgartner became the first man in the world to skydive from the edge of space. The Austrian teamed up with Red Bull to jump 127,852 feet above the Earth, and apparently he was free falling through the Earth's atmosphere for around 4 minutes before his parachutes were deployed. Now in 2014, his record was beaten by American Alan Eustace, a former senior vice president at Google. So he went up into the stratosphere in a helium balloon and jumped out at around 135,908 feet. Now this is record breaking and insane, can you imagine? In at number 9, we have the Stardust Comet Sample Return Mission. Launched in 1999, Stardust went on a 7-year mission to collect samples and comets and cosmic dusts. Now this was the first solid sample mission in 30 years. Now the exciting thing about this mission is that Stardust brought back samples of interstellar dust. Now this may consist of ancient pre-solar grains that are older than our entire solar system. Now this could shed some serious light on the origin of our solar system and life as we know it. Incredible. In at number 8, we have the Hubble Space Telescope. Launched in 1990, Hubble is the largest and most versatile telescope in space. Initially developed by our mates NASA along with the European Space Agency, hooray for Hubble! So this long-lensed honey has since captured some high-res images of space that have led to some pretty deep studies on our solar system. In at number 7, we have the birth of satellite navigation. So this is for sure an incredible moment in space because this has led to changes right here on Earth. Do you guys use Google Maps? Do you use GPS on your phone? Have you ever watched satellite television? Do you use GPS in your car? Well, if so, you can thank human endeavors in space. It all started with Sputnik, the first ever artificial satellite launched back in 1957 by the Soviet Union. Using similar technology, GPS, aka Global Positioning Satellites, was created by the US Department of Defense and became partially operational in 1995. GPS uses 24 separate satellites to function and provides location and time information in all weather conditions anywhere on the Earth where there is an unobstructed line of sight of 4 or more GPS satellites. Handy. In at number 6, we have the Mars Exploration Rovers. Now this began in 2003. NASA's Mars Exploration Rover mission is a space mission involving 2 robots, Spirit and Opportunity. Honestly, who names these things? They had the opportunity to call them Captain like Nebulize or the other one Robot McRobotface, but no, they went with Spirit and Opportunity. Fine. Unfortunately, Spirit died in 2011, which is very, very sad, but Opportunity lives on, discovering in memory of its sibling. Anyway, understanding the red planet is crucial to understanding our own place in the solar system. We already know that at one time Mars was a water planet like Earth. Now, amongst other discoveries, the Mars rovers have been able to give us signs that water still exists somewhere on the planet. We also now know more about the atmosphere of Mars, we've discovered evidence of meteor crashes and evidence of ancient acid lakes. In at number 5, we have Voyager 1. So Voyager 1 is the furthest away from Earth a man-made object has ever been. Just think about that for a second. Launched in 1977, Voyager 1 was launched to study space. It worked for a whopping 36 years until it went out of our solar system in 2013. Guys, it is no longer in our solar system. Seriously, think about that. It is 12 billion miles away from the sun right now. Scientists were able to learn that Voyager 1 travelled through a layer of plasma before entering interstellar space. The mind literally boggles if you even try and imagine where this thing is right now and what it can see if it had eyes. In at number 4, we have building the International Space Station. The International Space Station is the largest artificial thing in orbit and can sometimes be seen from Earth. Hello astronaut friends, it's us. How you doing? The station has been continuously manned since November 2000 and makes missions to Mars and the Moon a whole lot easier, allowing for more to take place with success. Guys, like, humans now have a home outside the Earth in space. I love it. In at number 3, we have Yuri Gagarin. This is the first man in space. We owe so much to Yuri Gagarin. Without him, almost all of these incredible moments in space would not have been possible. Yuri was from Russia, and in 1961, aged just 27, he became the first human to go into outer space as he completed an orbit of the Earth. Now his bravery was outstanding, rendering him the ultimate explorer. Unfortunately, his love for flying did lead to his demise. He died when the MiG-15 jet he was piloting crashed. Suffice to say though guys, without Yuri, this next moment would have been practically impossible. Yep, that's right, in at number 2 we have man walking on the moon, the 1969 moon landing. So on May the 25th, 1961, President John F. Kennedy announced before the world that America would put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. Unfortunately, he didn't live to see it, but it did happen. He stayed true to his promise. July 21st, 1969 is a date that has gone down in history as one of the most important days in our existence. Apollo 11 landed on the moon at 8 PM on the 20th of July, and 6 hours later, at 4 minutes to 3 in the morning, astronaut Neil Armstrong took the first steps onto the lunar surface. Together with Buzz Aldrin, he explored the surface for 2.5 hours while pilot Michael Collins waited in the spacecraft. So these guys walked on the moon, they popped an American flag in there, and it is still up there today. Fun fact for you guys, there are a total of 6 American flags on the moon, and apparently in time they've turned white. Fun fact. So guys, we have reached that all-important moment in our most amazing top 10 incredible moments in space. We've had some strong contenders, but there is only one moment in space, which for us at least is the ultimate incredible moment, and that absolutely has to be, hands down, the birth of the Earth. That's right, the big old bang. Scientists have discovered that the Earth was created 4.5 billion years ago. Slightly less simply, particles collided within a solar nebula. Thousands of books and essays have been written on the subject that can explain the process a little bit better than me, but what we need to know is that boom, one day, the beginning of the Earth happened, and over the course of billions and billions of years, the Earth has changed, cooling, allowing for oxygen, forming oceans, and ultimately creating a climate from which human beings can thrive. Even the word incredible wouldn't exist without this one incredible moment. End of. Alright, let's start this video off with a roar at number 10. In 2006, a group of Californian astronomers heard something very loud and very strange. The team were attempting to detect the very first stars in the universe, but instead of seeing old cosmic light, instead they heard an almighty radio wave roar. In fact, the roar was 6 times greater than the combined emission of all known radio sources ever made. So loud. While this wasn't the sound of the Big Bang, it was the sound of something mysterious from the early beginnings of the universe, something more intense and much louder than we were ever able to encounter. What could it have been, honestly? I don't know. Coming into number 9, we have the really sad and scary tale of WASP 12b. Exoplanet WASP 12b flew too close to the sun. Literally. It's currently being devoured by its sun. It's a pitch black planet in the midst of destruction, but there are signs that it may have once been a little like Earth. Researchers have noticed evaporating water vapor in the atmosphere of the planet. WASP 12b is bigger than Jupiter and is now oval shaped because of the effect that being gobbled up has had on the planet's structure. In 2010, the Hubble Space Telescope was able to capture a glimpse of the planet being eaten, although it is a slow dying process. It seems that actually the planet will slowly be sucked up bit by bit into the burning hot sun over the next 10 million years. Wow, that is one long dinner. It likely had moons that were swallowed first as appetizers. Honestly, how sad and, you know, terrifying. Coming into number 8, we have the faces of Mars. There are a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding Mars, and although we still have so much to learn about it, it is perhaps our most photographed planet. Those photos have sometimes shown something pretty crazy though. In 1976, the Viking orbiter passed over the surface of Mars and took this picture. Whatever it is, it stands at twice the height of the Empire State Building. Some people were quick to jump to the conclusion that Mars was actually once home to an ancient civilization. Others simply called it pareidolia, the phenomena of seeing faces. In 2010, rover Spirit took this image, which many say features a woman walking on the surface of Mars. Again in 2015, it was questioned whether or not a goblin face had been spotted. What is happening with Mars and all of the faces, honestly? Coming in at number 7, this freaks me out, we have the music of the moon. Just months ahead of the Apollo 11 mission that saw humans walking on the surface of the moon for the first time, astronauts went on the Apollo 10 mission just to basically scope the place out a little more. Now the mission passed around the moon. It took place in May 1969, and when the spacecraft was orbiting the dark side of the moon, they lost all radio contact with ground control and the rest of the Earthlings. What happened? Something really weird. As Apollo careered around the moon, they heard some very, very strange and disconcerting sounds, like really weird sounds. In the now declassified recordings from space, we hear a very strange wooing sound. We can also hear the astronauts talking about it with one another extensively. Now the weird sounds were not reported at the time, but they were recorded and received by NASA when the mission returned to Earth. They were kept a secret until 2008, but since their declassification, we can now hear the alleged sounds ourselves. Check them out.
Sounds outer spacey, doesn't it? Do you hear that? That whistling sound?
Ooh, coming in at number 6, we have the snakes. Dr. Musgrave is a veteran astronaut who went on 6 shuttle missions. The man has 6 academic degrees and was a member of the Marine Corps. It seems that after a period of silence, he revealed that he thought he saw some kind of space snakes during one of his missions. In 1994, he said, "On 2 of my missions, and I still don't have an answer, I have seen a snake out there." That's right guys, on 2 of his missions. He continued by saying 6 or 7 or 8 feet long. He said that the snake followed him around for a long period of time out of the window, and he tried to communicate with it. Dr. Musgrave thinks that they have their own propulsion technique. Now actually, it seems that in 1979, a Soviet astronaut also saw something long and strange out there too. A possible alien signal. Up next, at number 5, we have WOW. In 1977, Ohio State University's Big Ear Radio Telescope detected something extremely strange and so shocking that the people recording it simply wrote down the word wow. They heard it and they were like, wow. The WOW signal came from the Sagittarius constellation, which is about 5,000 light years away. Now the surprising sound lasted for 72 whole seconds and then was never heard of ever again. This is what it sounded like. Many scientists agree that it sounded like it could be of extraterrestrial origin. Is it an alien signal? If it was, it would have been sent many thousands of years ago, so who intended it for us? They're probably long gone. Coming in at number 4, we have the dark matter. Weirdly, our universe seems to contain some mystery dark spots. In fact, some doesn't even quite do it justice, as this matter seems to make up over a quarter of our universe. Nobody knows what it is, and no one has officially seen it. We only see it by not seeing it, if that makes any sense. Dark matter does not interact with any of the matter that we can see, so it really is a scary mystery. It actually kind of reminds me of the Lovecraftian monster, the blackness from the stars. It's a sentient darkness, I quote, torn from the fabric of the cosmos, at the center of the universe. H.P. Lovecraft, he knew it! Okay, next up we have what my nightmares are actually made of at number 3. We have supermassive black holes. Supermassive black holes are one of the scariest stories I know of, and they are fact rather than fiction. What makes the narrative of black holes so scary is that they're so mind-bending. We literally cannot get our heads around them. Black holes are where the laws of time, space, and physics as we know them break down and bend. We can't actually see black holes, but you can see what's around them. Black holes are areas of space that are so dense that their gravity sucks in everything around them. Not even light, the fastest moving particles that we know, can escape the draw of a black hole. While some stars die and implode on themselves, they create little black holes, but supermassive black holes are billions of times more massive than the sun. Scarily, we have no idea what happens when particles go beyond the event horizon, which is the point of no return when it comes to a black hole. We do have a theory that things get broken down atom by atom and are subjected out to an inappropriate process of spaghettification. But again, this is just a theory, we don't know for a fact. The late great Professor Stephen Hawking thought that black holes may be folds to other universes, and honestly, it sends shivers up my spine. Wanna know what a black hole sounds like? Maybe not if you want to sleep tonight, but if you don't, have a listen. Meet the only humans to die in space. These are the cosmonauts of Soyuz 11. These 3 Russian cosmonauts stayed at the Slyat 1 space station in 1971. Now the crew were detaching from the station and heading back to Earth in their spacecraft when a cabin vent opened. Unfortunately, this meant that their oxygen supply ran out and the pressure dropped. The crew were exposed to the vacuum of space. Now they all died within seconds, but nobody knew until the spacecraft landed safely. The craft was able to land in its autopilot mode, and when the doors were opened, the 3 men were found dead in a pretty gruesome looking way. Ugh, these are the only 3 people to ever die in space, and it's really sad. If you didn't think you were gonna cry today, you were wrong. Finally at number 1, we have the last words of opportunity. Is it okay to cry over a robot? I think that maybe I've just been feeling a bit emotional lately, like I've been a bit stressed, I don't know. But when I heard about the death of the Mars rover Opportunity, I actually cried real tears. I'm so sad about it. It hurts. Opportunity has been roving around like a good little robot. It's been on planet Mars since 2004. Spirit and Opportunity, the roving pair, were only supposed to survive 90 days. Now, Spirit lived a very respectable 6 years until 2010, but Opportunity survived 14 and a half years. Opportunity holds the record for the longest distance driven by an off-Earth wheeled vehicle. Yay, Opportunity! Now, communications were lost with Opportunity after a massive sandstorm on the red planet covered its solar panels. Now, it seems that the last words pinged over to NASA from the rover were, "My battery is low, it's getting dark." No! Don't die, Opportunity! It was unfortunately announced on February the 13th, 2019 that Opportunity had stopped functioning. NASA's last message to the rover was to play Billie Holiday's "I'll Be Seeing You," which actually breaks my heart even more. When humans do land on Mars, it is said that they will build a memorial to Opportunity, and hopefully one day its little robot body can be found. I'll be looking at the moon, Opportunity, but I will be seeing you.
At number 10 now, the sound of a black hole. Edward Morgan from MIT collected X-ray data on a distant black hole, then transmitted it into a sound that is audible to humans. The original of this is about 1,000,000 billion times deeper than anything you could ever hear. The deepest note in the universe, in fact. But with a little bit of tweaking, here is a sound of an actual black hole, and it's terrifying. Coming out at number 9, we have the Lost Cosmonaut. In 1961, 2 Italian brothers recorded a signal from space which they claimed was from a secret Soviet space mission. It sounded like a female cosmonaut who was in distress while trying to orbit the Earth. Something had apparently gone wrong. She was complaining of feeling hot as she burned up in the atmosphere. Now the Russians announced that an unmanned craft had burned up in the atmosphere and denied they had any knowledge of the lost cosmonaut. At the number 8 spot now, we have Tabby's star. This mysterious star was discovered by amateur astronomers and found to be about 1,400 light years from Earth. The strange thing was, the brightness of it would dip by 22% for days at a time. Some suggested it was a Dyson sphere, a theoretical alien structure that would enclose a whole star to harvest all of its power. For many years it's been just a sci-fi idea, but Tabby's star seemed to fit this theory very well. At the time of recording, scientists are still carrying out further studies. Coming in at number 7 now, we have 234 stars. In 2016, Canadian astronomers found something very strange within the Milky Way. 234 stars that were blinking at exactly the same rate. Eric Trottier, the astronomer who found this, proposed that the signal was just too much of a coincidence. He thought it was of alien origin. He said that the pulsating signals were caused by an alien civilization flashing a laser in our direction, causing a faint but detectable blip in the their star's light. The stars could even be 234 different civilizations pulling together to try and contact us. Moving on to number 6 now, we have the sound of Saturn. In 2002, the Cassini spacecraft passed by the gas giant of Saturn. It listened to the planet's aurora caused by its huge magnetic field. The signal was way out of human hearing, so they slowed it right down, they compressed it, and this is what they heard. Alright, moving on to number 5 now, we have the Lorimer burst. This signal was detected in 2007 after astronomers dug through 6 years of previous data. Then they found it. It was a very brief burst of radio emission, just 5 milliseconds in total. The area it came from was 5 to 11 billion light years away from Earth. This means that when the signal left its origin, Earth hadn't even been formed yet, which is mind-blowing. Scientists were shocked to find that whatever made this signal released more energy in that short burst than the Sun does in 4 months. Moving on to number 4 now, we have this. It's a very weird name, but it has an incredible story behind it. Scientists detected this signal from an empty area of space with no stars or planet systems near it for about 1,000 light years, from an area between the constellations of Pisces and Aries, and yet a signal came. It was detected as being a short burst at about 1420 megahertz. That's one of the main frequencies at which hydrogen, the most common element in the universe, absorbs and emits energy. Scientists have often thought of using this to contact any aliens out there, and so when we received it, it's drawn a lot of attention. Coming in at number 3 now, we have frequency 4462.3. This signal came from a star only 100 light years from us, and it was a star quite similar to our own. It's called TYC 1220911, and it was nothing out of the ordinary until it did something. The noise it made was just 10 seconds long, but now that it's been adjusted so we can hear it, it's very scary and creepy. Tell me what you think of it. At number 2, we have the cosmic roar. In 2006, a group of California astronomers were trying to detect the very first stars in the universe. Instead, they heard a radio wave roar. What they heard was 6 times louder than the faint signal they expected to detect. In fact, this roar was 6 times greater than the combined emission of all known radio wave sources. And this wasn't the sound of the Big Bang. It was the sound of something mysterious from the start of the universe, something more intense than we've ever encountered. And finally now at number 1, we have the wow signal. What else could it be, really? In 1977, Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope detected the strangest signal ever heard from space. It came from the Sagittarius constellation, and many scientists thought that it sounded like it could be of extraterrestrial origin. It lasted for 72 seconds, and then it was never heard of again. The astronomer who found the signal was so shocked by it that they wrote "wow" in the margin, giving us its name. Now it's been adjusted like some of the other ones so that we can hear it, and this is what it sounds like.
Now, resources. They're what human beings have been fighting over since the dawn of time. Resources mean life or death, and in space travel, water, food, and oxygen are limited. It's one of the main reasons why prolonged space travel has been so tough to figure out. One of the biggest fears is running out of oxygen. Spacecraft rely on complex life support systems to generate oxygen from water, but any malfunction could lead to a shortage. And the thought of being stranded in the black void of space, slowly running out of air, knowing there's no way help can reach you in time, is pretty terrifying. Astronauts also need water, not just for drinking, also for cooking and hygiene. In space, water has to be carefully recycled from every possible source, including urine and sweat. Yes, sending water up into space is expensive, as is, so astronauts on the ISS are already working with a short supply, so imagine being out deep into space. The fear here is that any failure in the recycling system could deplete the water supply, and then of course, we have food. Gotta make sure there's enough food to last the entire journey. Space food is specifically prepared to stay edible for long periods, but if supplies were to somehow run out or become contaminated, they'd be screwed. And again, this is more manageable on the ISS, so close to Earth, but if a manned crew was deep out into space, a resupply would of course take a much longer time to reach them. There have even been situations on the International Space Station where there have been delays that have happened with supplies of food and water. Rockets have been sent up from Earth, but stuff's gone wrong and supplies have been delayed getting there. It can be a real issue. Alright, in shows like Star Trek, it always seems like space is just this empty void you can just fly through no problem until you come in contact with another ship or a planet, but things wouldn't be quite as smooth sailing in real life. Space is full of debris. You have micro meteoroids, for example, which are tiny particles of rock or metal that travel through space at extremely high speeds, and even though they're small, they can cause serious damage if they collide with a spacecraft or spacesuit. Imagine traveling millions of miles from Earth, knowing that at any moment a tiny invisible particle could just puncture the hull of your ship. Even closer to Earth, we have leftover pieces of old satellites and discarded rocket parts and stuff. Most of it is still orbiting around Earth, and there have been situations where stuff has crashed into the International Space Station. Unlike larger objects that can be tracked and avoided, smaller threats are harder to detect and can hit without warning. And forget the ship, what if a spacesuit is punctured during a spacewalk? NASA does use shielding to help protect against debris, but it's impossible to eliminate the risk altogether. One of the biggest dangers to human health is extreme temperatures, and space can be extremely cold or intensely hot, with no atmosphere to moderate the temperature. Objects in space can experience temperatures from hundreds of degrees below zero to hundreds of degrees above, depending on their exposure to the sun. In deep space, when an object is in direct sunlight, it can get incredibly hot, but in the shadow of a planet or when the sun is blocked, temperatures can plummet. And this drastic difference in temperature can happen really quickly, which can be a big problem for both astronauts and their equipment. For astronauts, it's spacewalks where this can be the most dangerous. Spacesuits are designed to protect against fluctuations in temperature, but any malfunction or damage to the suit and you could suffer from hyperthermia or hypothermia. And for the spacecraft, well, temperature changes cause things to expand and contract. So if we did happen to be on a massive journey deep into space, who knows what the constant expansion and contraction would do to the ship over time. Another concern is gravitational anomalies, regions of space with unexpected gravitational forces that could trap a spacecraft in a dangerous zone. Space is unpredictable. The idea of encountering regions where the gravitational pull is stronger or weaker than anticipated is a real concern. This could cause the ship to veer off course, or worse, it could get caught in a gravitational trap, almost like a whirlpool, like just stuck in orbit, leaving everyone stranded, floating in orbit until all the food and water runs out. Very scary thought. Another dangerous aspect of space travel is the exposure to harmful radiation. Not sure if you're aware of this, but human beings aren't really built for flying through space. We, as well as everything else on this planet, is perfectly suited for Earth. The atmosphere and magnetic field protect us from harmful cosmic and solar radiation, but in space, there is no protection. Astronauts are constantly bombarded by high energy particles, and radiation exposure can cause immediate and long-term health issues. There's a chance of radiation sickness, which causes nausea, vomiting, and fatigue, which sucks on its own, but it can also impair an astronaut's ability to perform tasks. And in space, where one wrong move can spell disaster, that's a bit of a problem. Long-term exposure is even more concerning. Over time, radiation can damage DNA, increasing the risk of cancers or even genetic mutations. The possibility of developing cancer years after a mission is a risk astronauts decide to take on. It's not just an astronaut's health radiation can affect, though, but their equipment as well. Radiation can interfere with the electronics on a spacecraft, causing malfunctions. This would be especially dangerous in deep space, where help would be far away and repairs would have to be made with whatever resources the crew would have on hand. Malfunction in navigation, communication, or, heaven forbid, life support systems would be catastrophic. Now, NASA spacecrafts are designed with shielding to protect against radiation and limit the time astronauts spend in space to reduce exposure, but no matter how much we prepare, the dangers of radiation in deep space are always a threat because things won't always go as planned. And solar flares could make things even worse. Sudden bursts of radiation from the sun can be difficult to predict. Sleep is just as essential to us as food and water, and sleep can be a bit of a problem in space. We've evolved here on Earth with a day and night cycle. It's built into our bodies to be awake during the day and asleep at night. And when that sleep cycle gets messed up, we get messed up. If you ever spent all day at school and then worked all through the night, you know how detrimental it is to your physical and mental health over time, and it really doesn't take that long. In space, where there's no natural day-night cycle, astronauts can struggle to keep up with a healthy sleep pattern. I mean, the lights are always on, and there's no real sense of time passing, not to mention they sleep upright. The disruption to the body's internal clock can lead to insomnia, fatigue, irritability, or worse. And on top of that, you have the other effects of space travel, like muscle atrophy, and poor sleep can just make this even worse. Then your immune system is weakened, making you more susceptible to illness. So yeah, long duration missions are a big risk. An obvious danger of exploring the far reaches of space is, of course, encountering other life forms. It would be cool, or at least it could be. It could also be an absolute worst case scenario. With billions of galaxies and potentially trillions of planets, the possibility of encountering extraterrestrial life, whether intelligent or not, is a fun idea. But what could these life forms be like? How might they interact with us? We often picture highly advanced and intelligent aliens bent on world domination, like in War of the Worlds, but the motivations of a potential extraterrestrial species are completely unknown. Even unintelligent life forms could be dangerous. Maybe they'd be hostile in a wild animal kind of way. And even if they weren't, another concern is the potential for biological contamination, beings that carry viruses or illnesses that we have no way of dealing with. If astronauts came in contact with alien microbes or organisms, there is a risk that these life forms could, hitch a ride with us back to Earth and then cause even more problems. Being millions or even billions of miles away from Earth means complete isolation, aside from the other astronauts on your crew. Isolation and the psychological impact of it has to be one of the most daunting things about deep space travel. Not only is there no immediate help for emergencies, but the extreme isolation can take a pretty heavy toll on an astronaut's mental health. I mean, this is already something that's known to happen. And if we were to start traveling deeper and deeper into the abyss, this would become an even bigger issue. To be confined in a small spacecraft for months or even potentially years with only a few other people for company, the sense of loneliness can be overwhelming. Communication with Earth would be delayed and limited, and the monotony of space travel would also just be mentally exhausting. Seeing the same small group of idiots in the same environment well, they're not idiots, they're astronauts for God's sakes, but you start to feel like they're idiots, I imagine, after a while. Everyone gets on your nerves eventually. And, no option to step outside for a breath of fresh air, or just to change the scenery. It's just black, and then stars, and then gotta be incredibly claustrophobic. Now, astronauts know what they're getting into, and they train for this, of course, but can any amount of training really prepare you for potentially spending years out there? The fear of the unknown is one of humanity's greatest fears, and we know basically nothing about what is truly out there in the far reaches of space. Look at how many ships have met tragic ends exploring the ocean. The dangerous storms, the wildlife, the treacherous currents. Who the hell knows what horrors are out in space? We can predict some of the dangers we could face in space, like on this list, but there is still stuff that's unexplained. Bursts of energy, anomalies in space-time, unidentified objects of some kind. Stuff we just can't fully explain or even comprehend. Stuff we can never prepare for before we come face to face with it. And unfortunately, the first ones to find out likely won't make it home to tell the tale.